Hello and welcome to South Bay Sports Radio. Here's your host, Nick Ingram.
Today I am joined by 2018 Redondo Union alum Jack Alexander, the current offensive coordinator at North Torrance. Jack participated in one of the highest scoring football games I've ever seen, and I'm really excited to dig into that with him. Please welcome Jack Alexander to South Bay Sports Radio.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for having me on today. It's a pleasure.
Of course, I want to shout out our show's sponsor, Barber, to you. Eli Lopez and his team do a phenomenal job at making all things haircut-esque beautiful. You see my beard? Yesterday, this thing did not look this good. Tomorrow, yours can look even better. Be sure to check it out, styleseat.com. Book your appointment now, and make sure you tell them that South Bay Sports Radio sent you. All right, Jack. You took on the position of offensive coordinator at North Torrance. What went into that decision, and how excited are you to join one of the longest tenured coaches in Todd Croce?
Yeah, I mean, Todd Croce is someone that I ultimately respect. So when he reached out to me, it was definitely an opportunity that I consider strongly. And in terms of looking for more, that's what it came to this offseason for me personally as a coach. While I'm still young, I'm looking to grow, one as a play caller, but two as a leader of men. So that's what came into leaving Servite. And going back to the South Bay was something that appealed to me. That's where I'm from. That's what I'm familiar with. And so when Coach Croce reached out, it felt like a blessing. And it felt like something I had to take advantage of and take the opportunity.
What's one of the battles that you're looking forward to? I know North right now, they compete in the Pioneer League, but have you even gotten a chance to look at the schedule, or are you more focused on helping these young men grow?
The primary focus, helping these young men grow, teaching them football. It's kind of teaching them my philosophy behind the game, and making them enjoy it, fall in love with it. But I've definitely looked at the schedule in terms of the Pioneer League. Lately, it's been running through Torrance High School. Coach Carter and the staff does a great job there. So hopefully at the end of it, it's us and them last week of the season. So that's the one I got circled right now.
Coach has been there for a long time. He's had some great players come through there, but what's the biggest question mark that you're wanting to address as offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I would say just my inexperience as a play caller. I've called plays at the underclass level at both freshman and JV at Servite, but obviously I'm inexperienced, I'm young, so there's a stereotype behind that I might not know what I'm doing, but I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm very confident in what I do, and like I said, I'm just trying to get these kids to see the game the same way I do. Coach Croce trusts me, which I'm very thankful for. Me and him are going to work hand in hand together, but at the end of the day, I'm thankful to be able to put my flavor on this offense and kind of bring a new identity to North. Hopefully we put up a lot of points on the scoreboard, but ultimately it's a team game. And as long as we find a way to win at the end of the day, that's the ultimate goal, as long as growing these young men.
That coaching staff has a lot of North Torrance alumni on it, especially Mike Juarez and Josh LaRue. But how big is it for you to kind of allow yourself to learn from them as well, knowing the pride that they have as Saxon alum?
That's definitely a big part of it, and that's honestly kind of what appealed, or what made North appeal to me. I saw the tenure on the coaching staff. All those assistants have been there like a decade plus. Obviously not Josh and Mike as they're younger, but it's a strong community there, and that's important to me. Ultimately, football is only 10 promised games a year plus playoffs. So it's about brotherhood, building a community, not only for the players in the program, but for the other students at the school, for the fans that show up, for all the families that put in time, money, and effort into the program. And so I like the sense of community that North has. Very appealing to me, and I'm just hoping I can contribute to that and make people prouder to be part of this North community.
Let's go back to your beginnings. When did you initially fall in love with football?
I played flag football all my life, starting at, I believe, 7 years old. But I would say I fell in love with it my 8th grade year when I put on the pads for the first time, playing Redondo Pop Warner. I was thankful to have a great coaching staff full of Air Force generals. And a lot of those guys had played college football at Air Force Academy. So that was awesome. Those are the ones that I kind of credit to not only making me fall in love with football, but making me want to become a coach. I knew at a young age that I wanted to be a coach. This was always a passion of mine. So I'm just kind of living out my dream right now, as silly as it sounds.
It's not silly, because every day is a dream chasing way. Your 4 years at Redondo, you become one of those quarterbacks that becomes one of the best in the area. But how would you describe those 4 years from your freshman year to your senior year?
definitely a transformation. Coming into high school, I wasn't very experienced as a quarterback, except first time playing quarterback was that 8th grade year. So I was just kind of, mentality was be a sponge, soak up everything I can. I was thankful to have a lot of great coaches at Redondo, and I did a year at Bosco as well. I was thankful for that. I learned a lot there. Obviously, didn't get to play at the varsity level, but I credit that year to a lot of my football IQ growth. And then coming back to Redondo, it just put me in a different mindset, gave me a state of confidence that I never had before. And, I was thankful for what we built at Redondo those 2 years. Those last 2 years, my junior and senior year. Still look back at those memories fondly. And yeah, that's why it kind of drew me back to the South Bay. There's a lot of great programs in this area, not only Redondo, Bay League's full of them, Pioneer League's full of them. So I'd love to be in this area as long as I can.
When you were at Redondo, Redondo was in the Bay League. And two of the games that I had covered that you were a part of were the last game of the season, Redondo Maricosta. Redondo builds a 20-2 lead, and then you guys hang on for, I think it was like a 27-23 win. But I want to
Yeah.
go back to October 13th, 2017. You guys go up to PV, and this game was back and forth. It ended on a 40-something yard field goal. And this is something that Coach Apane still brings up today. What do you remember about that game, that October afternoon up at Palos Verdes?
Yeah, I remember it being a long game because there was like an ambulance delay at one point. So we finished when it was getting dark pretty much. But yeah, that one, I still have a bitter taste in my mouth from that one. Just as a competitor, I hate losing more than I like winning. So them making that kick and us losing sucked. But obviously, I look back at that game very fondly personally because I felt like I left it all on the field, did what I can. I think I ran that game more than I ever ran in my life. And a lot of those were quarterback design runs. So just wanted to put the body on the line. We knew going into that game that the mindset was that's a Bay League championship. It came through us in PV at the time. And unfortunately, they won. Hats off to them. Coach Gardner does a great job, probably one of the best, if not the best in the area. So and that's why he's still doing it right now.
A little bit of stats about that game. So I had Jack running for 100 yards. He threw for 269 on 23 of 26 passing. PV led in that game 34-14, and they wound up winning 37-35. That's one of
Yeah.
those games, like I said, I know I said it was high scoring, but that was one of those games that anything could happen. And that was the year where, you as the play caller at Redondo kind of opened my eyes to a lot of differences in the area. It was very early in my ability to cover those top tier games, but what was a big old rivalry to you? I know Costa's big, but how big was it between PV knowing that they were the team that everybody wanted to take down?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Redondo Costa. I would say that's doesn't really get bigger than that in the South Bay. I don't know how it is now. That's a pretty big one, Battle of the Surfboard. So it's hard to say it was bigger than that, but it was definitely different. A lot more respect for PV. Like I said, like what Coach Guy Gardner has built, and that's not to say, I mean, Coach Morrow's done a hell of a job. He's been there longer than anyone, so that's not no disrespect to Gardner Costa at all. PV had just won a couple championships prior before that, so like I said, that game was always one circle preseason. Like, look, if we can beat these guys, we can probably beat anybody on our schedule. So we were able to score with them, hang with them. Ultimately, had the lead with a minute left, but that's why football is we play to the final whistle. So
Yeah, Redondo. So for those of you listening, I'm looking at my article. Redondo led by 1 with 57 seconds left, and PV had the ball on its own 25. Not to dig the nail in deeper, but I can't help but go back in time to that because I just remember that being one of those games that how am I going to write an article about this? How am I going to do this? And, of course, I wound up putting out an article, but I'm just blown away by everything that goes into it. You get to learn from one of the guys in the area that's probably the most well traveled. He's actually been coined the mad scientist. John Aponte, he's won at South Torrance, he's won at Redondo, he's won at San Pedro. How fun was that relationship to build with somebody that had that Marine Corps, New York, New Jersey background?
yeah, Ponte is my guy. I'm forever grateful for him. He's probably my favorite coach of all time. He's a guy I lean on as a mentor now through this whole process of deciding where I was going to coach next. I just look up to him a lot. Having that Marine background was something I was accustomed to with the Pop Warner coaches I had. It's kind of what drew me to him, and he got the most out of me. And he taught me a lot, obviously, when I was playing. And now we talk all the time about, more of the X's and O's and whatnot. But we were doing a lot of that when I was 17, 18 years old. that was my best year at Redondo statistically, and that wasn't a coincidence. I would say the year before we had more talent around me, but Aponte came in and did what he does, kind of establish his culture, his identity. We were up tempo through a lot of RPOs, so a lot of the stuff that he did, I've taken some of it in my offense. Like I said, I kind of been a sponge and taken a little bit of everything from all the different coaches I've encountered. Um, but yeah, I'm ultimately forever grateful for me and Aponte's relationship, and that's one I'll take to the grave with me for sure.
How fun was it to watch Redondo's run this year? Keith Ellison said they started off slow. They wind up losing to Torrance to open league and then beating Torrance to start the playoffs, making it all the way to the championship. But did you have your eyes on that team throughout the year?
Yeah, I started to tune in more come playoffs. I mean, sadly at Servite we got knocked out pretty early, so I was able to after that point kind of follow the other divisions and their playoff races. So I was definitely checked in. Rio Hondo's kind of a machine. They do what they did, so that was unfortunate. Redondo had a great senior class, obviously led by Bo Osmus. So, but yeah, they've done a great job there. Keith's obviously now the guy he was the DC when I was there. I think of him as being Redondo forever now. That's when I think of Redondo, that's the first name that comes up. So, South Bay is kind of becoming an area where there's a lot of respected, tenured coaches. So I'm hoping to kind of be the next one in line here pretty soon.
After you graduate from Redondo, you go on to Dartmouth, and then you get a couple of stops. But what initially went into that decision to go to an Ivy League school, and what wound up happening for you to return to California and attend Chapman?
Yeah, Dartmouth for me was an opportunity that was too good to pass up at the time. The opportunity to play and learn from Buddy Tevens, who had head coach at schools like Florida and Stanford. Not your typical Ivy League guy, but he was Mr. Dartmouth. Basically, played there, coached there, and came back, left, and then came back. So, the decision to go there was honestly strictly a football decision, as silly as it sounds. But obviously, it's a 40-year decision, and I saw it through for the degree, or trying to see it through for the degree. But ultimately, it came down to just not being comfortable in my environment. Obviously, playing time has something to do with it too. Not being able to show up till August when fall camp starts. I was never really. They said I was in the comp per se, but I never had a chance with how big the playbook was to really be in that comp. But I'm grateful for that experience. It taught me a lot. Obviously, kind of humbled me a little bit. I thought I knew a lot about football until I got there, and I thought I was a good student until I got there. So when life throws you adversity, it's good to face it, not run away from it. You could say I ran away from it per se, but I learned a lot through facing that adversity. And ultimately, it was a decision to just, come back home and get healthy. Mentally, I wasn't healthy. I was dropping a lot of weight. So it was a decision that was bigger than football at that time to come home. But yeah, it was unfortunate how everything worked out. It'd be great to have that as a name on my resume as a degree. But ultimately, I knew that I was going to be a football coach. I'm putting all my eggs in this basket. So the degree ultimately shouldn't be too important to me down the line.
So you come back and you attend Long Beach City College under Brett Peabody, and then you go to
Yeah.
Azusa Pacific and then Chapman. When you come back and you get to learn from somebody like Brett Peabody, who's got that South Bay pedigree as well, went to Rolling Hills High, coached at South as well. How fun was that for you in your growth?
Yeah, it was awesome. Peabody and then the OC at the time, Sean Flynn, those two were the reason I chose Long Beach City. They had a great history of, developing quarterbacks and getting them to the Division 1 or high Division 2 level. So that was an opportunity that I was kind of seeking out before Dartmouth. Dartmouth offered me late after signing day. So if it wasn't for Dartmouth, I probably would have wound up going to Long Beach City um, straight out of high school, per se. I had a lot of smaller opportunities and some preferred walk-ons, but I was looking to bet on myself. And, Peabody's a guy I kind of feel like I have a similar mentality. He's very competitive. And I'm the same way, wired a similar way. So that's what drew me to him for sure. And he's another guy that I can lean on um, throughout this process, as I know he has a lot of resources in the South Bay as well.
One of the things about football that I want to go into is the negativity toward playing football. You played flag football up until you were in eighth grade before you put the pads on. But what's one of the biggest things that you tell parents who are scared about their kids getting involved in such a physical sport?
Yeah, there's definitely valid concerns with that. But as technology continues to improve, I do think there's limited risk. And then I do think a lot of it falls on us as coaches, right? How are you practicing? What are you teaching? Proper tackling technique is obviously important. You can't just show a video or show a clip of a high level professional college athlete doing it and expect the kids to reciprocate that right away. It's a process. Tackling on bags and dummies is important. Keeping our head out of it is very important. Even though I don't coach the defensive side of the ball, those are still fundamentals that are very important to me. Because, like I said, the ultimate goal for me is to become a head coach, and player safety is at the paramount above everything. Um, Especially nowadays, rosters aren't as big as they used to be. So keeping your guys healthy is very important. I don't really see a need for live tackling in practice, especially once the season comes around. Obviously, in the summer when we first get the pads on, there needs to be a little bit of it. But like I said, you gotta go through the steps first to get there, whether it's tackling on bags or, you know, going on your knees and tackling a teammate, like doing it or landing on a pad. There's lots of drills you can do that properly instill technique. But yeah, and then if there's any parents that still don't feel comfortable at that point, then kicking and long snapping are two positions that don't require any contact most of the time. So I would mention those possibilities as well. And the more the merrier. I'm always trying to add on whatever school I'm at. I'm always trying to build onto the roster. Football's a community sport. I believe there's an avenue for any kid to help us, even if they're not seeing a lot of playing time. It's truly a brotherhood. It takes more than just the 22 that are on the field. There's special teams and all of that. There's a lot of roles for kids to fill in terms of support and both playing time.
Did you play multiple sports growing up?
Yeah, I played everything growing up. I was a baseball guy. That was my best sport until then I put on the pads, and I was kind of burning out at baseball at the same time. But yeah, hindsight, I probably should have stuck with baseball. I probably could have went further with it than football. But I had no interest in being a baseball coach. So like I said, when I fell in love with football in 8th grade, I'm like, I want to become a football coach. I knew that at that 14 years old. So put all my eggs in the football basket from then on. And like I said, just being a sponge. Even in college, I didn't play a ton, but I learned a lot. Under 4 different coaching staffs, you accumulate a lot of knowledge. So.
What's your view on a young man who may come to you and say, "Coach, I just want to play football. I don't want to play basketball anymore. I don't want to play baseball. I don't want to run track." What's your response when you hear that there's a player that wants to specialize in something?
To me, I mean, I'm biased as a football coach. To me, that could be attractive, but at the same time, I am a supporter of multi-sport athletes. I do believe there's an advantage to that. I've seen a lot of data about the guys that get drafted in NFL, how many of them play 2 sports in high school, and I believe it's over 50%, right? So obviously, the game's changing a little bit with NIL, and I think NIL is causing a lot of these kids and parents to put all their eggs in one sport basket. That's not the reason I did it. I did it just to grow. I knew that I was behind the 8 ball in terms of knowledge. And I also was a little bit burned out on baseball. But I do believe that kids should um, ex- do multiple sports if at all possible. Track is a big one too, because it's not during football season, and you know track ultimately gets guys faster, teaches them how to run properly. So I'm a big fan of guys doing track in the spring, or baseball or basketball, any of those sports. Obviously, it's tough. Can't really do another sport in the fall with football, but once December hits, I'm fine with the guys going their separate ways. But obviously, when spring ball comes back around, I'm gonna need some of their attention. It doesn't need to be everyday presence, but it needs to be, some sort of attention.
Last thing, the talent level at Servite is definitely different from the talent level in the Torrance area. What was the biggest thing that you learned from the Orange County private school that you can bring to our area?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a ton at Servite. I would say the biggest thing for me is just how to not only work with players, some with egos, some without egos, but how to work with other coaches and parents. I did a lot of communication with parents, and we had a big staff. So just learning how to work and communicate with other people, effective communication. I think I did a good job of that. Maybe not when I first got there, but by the end of it, I felt like everybody was comfortable coming to me, whether it was to resolve an issue or just, to speak their mind a little bit. Ultimately, I want to be. I know it's common for parents to complain about coaches, and I'm sure people will complain about me at times, but I want to be their friend at the end of the day. I want to be someone that they can confide in, as long as they're not, berating me on the consistent basis. I don't mind getting yelled at, that's for sure. But as long as it's not consistent, I'm willing to be their friend because, they're putting a lot of time and effort into their program. Maybe not as much as their son, but they're still putting in a heck of a lot of time, and they're the ones paying the football fees ultimately. So I want them on my side if I can.
All right. That's going to do it for the serious part of this interview. We're going to transfer into rapid fire with Jack Alexander. All right, Jack, loosen the tie, put the clipboard down. Top 3 all-time football players.
Well, I got to go Tom Brady one, just to go. I can't really speak on it much more. I wasn't always a huge Tom Brady guy, but Tom Brady's one. A Baker Mayfield for sure in there. That was a guy I loved at Oklahoma and continue to still follow and be very passionate about. I'm tempted to say 3 quarterbacks here, but I feel like I got to sneak in a receiver. So I'll sneak in Randy Moss, just because, his impact on the game. I still see kids saying you got mossed, or that's still a common term, and that just is a reflection of his impact on the game. Not to say he is the best receiver of all time, but I definitely think he's in that conversation.
If I was to ask you who the best receiver of all time was, who would you say?
Jerry Rice is before my time, but it seems like that's the common answer. I think that if Antonio Brown didn't go off the rails, he had a chance to take the throne. What he was doing that 6-year run statistically was insane. But yeah, Jerry Rice seems like the right answer. And same with Megatron. If Megatron played a full career, who knows what his numbers look like. So, but Jerry Rice is probably the right answer.
Yeah, Jerry Rice used to train in lineman shoes. So if your receivers are looking to add an extra step, there you go.
Yep.
You get a chance to sit down with anybody in history. Who would it be?
Ooh. John Wooden. Greatest coach in all sports, I think, in my opinion. So, pyramid success. I have that, not in this house, but my parents' house somewhere signed in my room. Something that I've been familiar with that since a young age, since my introduction to sports. So, John Wooden would be the answer.
Top 2 football movies.
Oof, 2. Friday Night Lights has to be in there. I like that one a lot. And then, oof. I'm trying to think if I want to go the comedic route or yeah, why not? Longest Yard with the remake though. I've seen the old one. That old one's good too, but Adam Sandler and Chris Rock, that one's pretty funny. It's a classic.
So I grew up in Lawndale, and I went to school on the other side of El Camino, and we were driving past one time, and I was like, what's going on? What's with the stadium? And they filmed those football scenes at old Murdoch Stadium at El Camino.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
A biopic is being made about your life. Who plays Jack Alexander?
Oof. I'm not super in touch with all the actors, but maybe like that Glenn Powell guy. I believe that's his name. He just did the Chad Power show. He's kind of funny. I feel like he would fit my personality a little bit. So I'm not super in touch with his work, but I like him.
Deal. All right, last one. Your go-to South Bay eatery and your favorite dish there.
I got to shout out Willingham's. I've been going there since my latter part of high school when they opened. Down off PCH and I believe Ruby. It's in a little shopping center right next to a liquor store. Their brisket is phenomenal. I do the brisket sandwich, but everything there is good. So whatever you order, you can't go wrong.
What comes on that brisket sandwich?
I believe it's just onions and pickles, but you get a side as well. Whatever you order always comes with a side dish. So you get your collard greens, or whatever beans, cream corn, whatever your side of choosing is.
Which side do you get when you go?
Lately I've been doing the cream corn, but it just depends on the season. I'm not a huge fan of their collard greens, but I know some people are. So
there we go. Willingham's in Redondo Beach. Jack Alexander, I want to say thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing you on the sideline at North Torrance High School.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on, Nick. It was a pleasure.
Appreciate it, sir.